Backup power with TESVOLT, an exciting and yet challenging topic. We're now going to look at the question, how can we secure supply for your operation? What are the benefits of this? But to do this, we first need to distinguish certain terms from each other. UPS, emergency power, and backup power. Emergency power. Emergency power is also known as safety power. We can imagine when we are in a plant, there are sockets, usually marked with red. These are individual sockets that are connected to the emergency power system. That means that if the grid gets disconnected from the energy supplier and there is no electricity flowing within the company, there's a circuit that is secured by an emergency power system. That might be the circuit for the security cameras, or for sensitive equipment, or something like that. But we are mostly talking about one-phase power systems here. That is to say, energy is provided on a conductor, which as mentioned is marked especially so people know it's an emergency socket, and is generally 230 volts. This of course has the clear disadvantage that when the energy supply runs out, it runs out. So that's one point. You can't add in any renewable energies or energy sources, which would then charge the battery behind it. And if it's a diesel generator, when the generator is empty, it is empty. On the other hand, only this one phase can be operated. The rest doesn't work. If I have three-phase equipment, then I can't operate it. So we come to the topic of UPS, uninterruptible power supply. That has a fixed definition. The switching times here are unbelievably fast and have a fixed definition, namely in under 20 milliseconds. It basically has to be a seamless switch. That is also because of the typology absolutely realistic, that it's feasible. That's a basic requirement and we will take a brief look at that. We have the grid, we have a corresponding inverter, direct current, then here we have another inverter, which turns this direct current into an alternating current again. And there's the consumer. And here the battery is connected. Here's the battery. That means, if the grid drops out, interruption occurs immediately. The battery can switch on seamlessly, can feed in energy seamlessly to supply this consumer. This is extremely important, for example, where we have critical infrastructure, in hospitals, or IT server infrastructure. To make sure if the grid fails, this equipment all continues to function. A UPS, an uninterruptible power supply, is incredibly important. The issue is, it's really down to the typology. Disadvantage: if the battery is empty, the system also breaks down. Another disadvantage: I now cannot feed renewable energy into the system. I cannot bring in any additional energy source. This also, of course, makes the whole system very slow. The area of backup power. Why do we distinguish this from other variants? Well, emergency power, that is a separate circuit that continuously supplies power and supplies power in the case of a supply disruption or power failure, that's not what we do. UPS, uninterruptible power supply, switching in under 20 milliseconds, providing energy in an emergency through a UPS. That's not what we do. We do backup power. We'll explain briefly using the typology what that involves, and then we will see why it requires over 20 milliseconds switching time. There's a lot of communication that is involved in it, and what the benefits that arise from it are, for example, operating three-phase equipment in a case where backup power is needed, which cannot be achieved with either of the other variants. So we don't do UPS, we don't do emergency power, we do backup power. So let's start. We have the grid, then we have a corresponding grid disconnection, and here we have now connected via an inverter, for example, the photovoltaic installation. Via an inverter, we have connected the battery system. The battery system from TESVOLT connected the battery, and then of course there's the consumer in the circuit, clearly. The consumer. Now here's what happens next. If the grid fails, the system protection opens. This produces a hard cutoff from the grid, which allows the system to continue operating in line with the relevant standards. That means the storage system supplies the grid via the inverter. It creates its own grid, provides a backup grid. The consumer can draw energy from this grid when the inverter delivers energy from the battery, and at the same time, another huge benefit, in this system, as long as it is compatible, the inverter, the photovoltaic installation, or other systems like diesel generators or other energy producers can be synchronized with the system. That means the system can continue to operate. Normally, this photovoltaic installation would fail as soon as there was a power failure, power outage. It has to switch off for safety reasons. But when there's communication here, the relevant grid disconnection is there. All requirements are fulfilled and the storage system provides its grid. The photovoltaic installation can synchronize with it and can continue to supply energy, which benefits the consumer directly. If it has all it needs, the energy can be fed into the battery, or the photovoltaic installation can also be switched off if the energy is not required. Huge benefit here, three-phase operation of consumers is possible as the storage system effectively provides energy in three-phase operation via the inverter. I can run machines, welding equipment, cooling systems, air conditioning, ventilation systems, whatever I need for my business, I can continue to run like this. With the other two forms, that isn't possible. And now, for example, if we take farming, in this area, of course, it's essential to protect consumers. As a farmer, as a farming business, I'm responsible for providing, in the case of a power failure, to protect the animals that are kept there. And with a backup power system, using a battery storage system, I can of course provide energy automatically and much more cleanly than if I use a diesel generator or a pump generator that I would first have to link up with a tractor. So, of course, that's all much cleaner with a battery storage system than with a diesel generator. Operating costs are lower because I don't have to service the diesel generator. I have a low-maintenance battery storage system and an energy system that continues to provide an alternative way of producing renewable energy. Because of the system setup, this system does definitely need longer than 20 milliseconds. So it can't be classified as a UPS or an emergency power system. That's very important, but the consumers that are connected behind it, they should of course also be able to deal with it. We would discuss that as a part of individual project planning. The most important benefits on the topic of backup power. First, you reduce your operating costs distinctly, significantly if you have a diesel generator or simulator. Second point, in the case of a power outage, your systems can keep running and three-phase operation is still possible everywhere. That's important. Cooling units, machines, engines, they can continue operating. Unlike with emergency power, where we can only secure one phase in the company, a lamp circuit or something like that. And installations and energy sources can keep running when you have backup power. That means the photovoltaic installation can continue to produce energy and supply the company.